Hello, I'm Sergeant Peters, and this is Trooper Douglas. Welcome to the Crash Scene Reconstruction Unit of the Highway Patrol. Trooper Douglas will show you what to do and how to handle your first crash reconstruction.
This is a pretty bad crash. There are multiple injuries and fatalities. Let's find out what's going on and then get started. The first priority is to save lives, if possible. The second priority is to gather all necessary crash-related data, as we might not be able to collect it later. Since we don't necessarily know what we need, we will be very thorough and collect it all now.
We have 3 fatalities already determined. 2 males and 1 female declared dead. 2 other males are being taken to the hospital, and the female was removed by life flight, but I understand she was pronounced dead at the hospital. The 3 bodies will be taken to the morgue for examination. Is there other information you need from me?
I'll get the rest from the other officers. Thanks.
You know, there are at least 3 families, possibly more, that are really going to be hurting tonight. I wish people would realize that they aren't immortal before they prove that they aren't.
I agree. Too many people die for no real reason. I've determined that the blue Chevy Cavalier was traveling north on County Road 27, and the green Oldsmobile Alero was traveling west on Gary Road. The first thing we need to do is start to gather physical evidence, carefully and accurately. Anything we do could ultimately end up being defended in court, so you owe it to yourself, the patrol, and to the people who died here today to get it right. There is a lot of data that will be gathered here today by many different officers. I've already coordinated with the rest of the troopers here and know what data you will gather with my help. We'll start with the assessment of the vehicles involved. When looking over the cars, there is a check sheet we typically use. From this point forward, we will refer to the blue Chevy Cavalier as Unit Number 1, and the green Oldsmobile Alero as Unit Number 2. That will remain the same for the duration of the case. Complete the damaged areas on car section based on your observation of this unit. Make sure you pay attention to the details. Click the unit you'd like to report on first. Now we need to take a look at the evidence on the road and see what it tells us. Recording and measuring evidence like skids, scrapes, and debris will help us form a more complete picture of what happened and will hopefully help us figure out what caused this crash. Logically, what's the best way to proceed with this investigation? You'll have a hard time doing it that way. That's correct. We will start working our way backwards from the car's final resting place to the point where we think impact occurred. We will measure almost everything we see and record all information in our crash report. Whatever we don't measure will be measured by another patrol officer. I strongly encourage you to make your own sketch of the scene using the crash scene diagram template found in your crash report printout on page 4. This will help you get a better idea of how and where the accident happened. Start by tracing back Unit 1, the blue Chevy. Click all the skids and scrapes associated with this unit, starting at the car and going back to what you believe might be the point of impact. Since Highway Patrol will be recording a lot of measurements, we will label the small skid mark with letters to keep everything straight. Having seen the location, for now, we will just label the evidence that we're dealing with. The accident. Another trooper is measuring the skids small mark might be. Great. Now that we've decided what looks like headlights supports your conclusion, we'll begin by labeling where this is on our diagram. Unit 2 is now. Do you see other evidence? We also need to look at how it might be important again. We can still tell the location. Take another look at where this is in relation to connected to Unit 1. I can tell you we may also need to look at how the crash scene diagram. I think we've covered the evidence thoroughly. Label the front tires of Unit 2, G.
It looks like our fellow officers have determined that there were 2 witnesses to the crash. Since one driver has already been declared dead at the scene and the other driver is already at the hospital, we will only interview these 2. Assuming the driver of Unit 2 recovers sufficiently, another officer will interview him later and we'll get the results and our crash report. Here's our first witness. I'm expecting you to take notes using the interview section of your printout. I'll ask the questions. You take notes on all the pertinent information on pages 5 and 6 of the crash report. Remember, we need to get the important information now, not later.
Mr. Seymour, thanks for staying here so we could talk to you. Where were you when the accident occurred?
I was traveling south on 27. I was not yet to the end of that fence there.
Uh-huh. What did you see?
I saw the blue car at the stop sign. It started forward, and the next thing I saw was the green car hit the blue car. It was horrible, and both cars started skidding sideways. How fast would you say the green car was going? It looked like a normal speed.
What happened after the impact?
I drove as quickly as I could to the place the cars ended up. The two people in the green car got out. Oh, but they were in pretty bad shape. One fell down almost immediately. I think the driver. The other was leaning against the car. I smelled smoke, so I tried to get the driver of the blue car out. I couldn't get the seatbelt undone, so I cut it with my knife. I pulled him out, but he didn't have a pulse. I was getting afraid the fire might cause an explosion, so I felt for a pulse on the second guy in the car. There wasn't one. So I tried to get to the girl. She had a little bit of a pulse, but I couldn't get her out. I just couldn't get her out. It seemed like forever, but I guess it was probably only a few minutes before the first highway patrol car showed up. He sprayed foam around and put out the fire, and then he called in the life flight helicopter and the EMTs, who started tearing the car up to get to the girl.
Was there any other traffic on the road that you saw?
No, but honestly, I was so shocked. I wasn't paying too much attention after the accident. There could have been cars on 27. I'm not sure I would have noticed.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. We appreciate your help. Can you give us contact information if we have further questions for you later?
Yeah, sure.
While I get his contact information, you decide which questions below are important to ask Mrs.
I was going north on County Road 27 and saw a blue car stopped at the stop sign. I guess I was about 100 feet or so behind it. I was slowing down for the stop sign, and the blue car was pulling forward. I didn't see the green car coming, but all of a sudden it slammed into the blue car and started pushing it sideways. Not before the accident, no. Well, not that I saw.
Why would you want to know that?
There were all these plants to the right of my car. The plants are kind of high. That's probably what prevented me from seeing the green car.
Why would you want to know that? Well, I didn't really see it before it hit the blue car, so I can't really say.
I was so shocked. It was just horrible, but I thought it important to help those poor people. I didn't really feel there was much I could do to save them, but I called 911 on my cell phone and drove around the corner to see what I could do. There was another man there trying to get the passengers out of the blue car. He looked as shocked as I felt, and I could tell by looking at him that the passengers were in pretty bad shape. It was only a few minutes before the first highway patrol cars came, but I tell you, I'll have nightmares about this for a long time.
Thank you, Mrs. Harless. Please write down contact information. Good job, rookie. We're finished collecting the evidence we were assigned. We'll start our reconstruction back at the Highway Patrol Office.
I understand from the sergeant that all the data is now in for this crash scene on Gary Road and County Road 27. You might want to take a minute to familiarize yourself with the data that the other officers collected in the Officer's Notes section of your printout. As you can see, it is quite a bit of information. You will also find a symbols and equations section in your printout. Refer to it regularly as we work through the crash scene reconstruction. Now, the first thing we want to do is start building a picture of what happened based only on the physical evidence the highway patrol gathered. There are a number of ways to do this, but I usually start with the post-collision speeds of both cars. We will start with Unit 1. We're looking for the post-collision speed. However, remember it was on both asphalt and on grass, so we'll calculate the speed on both surfaces. Let's calculate the post-collision speed when the car was on the asphalt using this equation. Speed equals the square root of 30 times distance times drag factor times percentage of braking. Refer to equation number 1 on your printout. The first part we can solve for is the variable d, or distance. For this calculation, though, we are using the center of mass of the vehicle, not the location of the tires. See where I've put a large X connecting the tires? Make your measurements from the center of that X. Measure and enter the distance d. This distance will be from the center of mass at the impact point of Unit 1 to the center of mass at the edge of the road. To solve for F, look up the drag factor in the test skids section of your printout from the skid test taken on Gary Road. Find and use the drag factor these troopers recorded in your equation. To solve for percent braking, N, we have to take into account that on Unit 2, the bumper came down and flattened its front tires, which equals 40% braking. Unit 1 was being pushed sideways, which is considered 100% braking. To get our final number, we average the two percentages, 40 plus 100 divided by 2. Take the result and use that number in place of N in your equation. Remember to put a decimal before your percentage number. Great. Now you have enough information to solve for Unit 1's post-collision speed on asphalt. Now we need to calculate the post-collision speed for Unit 1 on the grass. Again, refer to equation number 1 on your printout. Let's fill in those variables. D is the distance. Measure and record the distance of the skid on the grass using the center of mass. To solve for F, we're going to use a number the Highway Patrol has researched for the drag factor on grass, which is 0.45. The braking percentage N will remain the same as our previous equation, 0.70. Good job. Now you have enough information to solve for Unit 1's post-collision speed on grass. Now that we have our Unit 1 speeds on asphalt and grass, we're going to round them down and calculate the combined speed loss over the two surfaces. Refer to equation number 2, combined asphalt and grass speed, on your printout, which is SC equals the square root of SA squared plus SG squared. Take your first number, the speed of Unit 1 on asphalt, and round down to the nearest whole number. This number will represent SA. Take your second number, the speed of Unit 1 on grass, and round down to the nearest whole number. This number will represent SG. Now type your numbers into the equation to get SC, which represents the combined speed. Round your answer down to the nearest whole number to get the overall speed of Unit 1 as it moved over two surfaces. I sure hope you got around 43 miles per hour as your answer. If we really want to know what happened during this accident, why are we rounding down and using the minimum post-collision speeds? That's not really true. Great job! Take a look at the combined post-collision speeds we have for the two cars. They should be 43 and 44 miles per hour respectively. This makes sense given the final location of the two cars and that Unit 2 was really the force moving Unit 1 after the crash. For future calculations, we will use 43 miles per hour as the post-collision speed for these two vehicles. Make sure you record this speed in the worksheet section of your printout. Both S3 and S4 will equal 43. Next, we need to determine what the approach speeds of both vehicles were to see how fast they were going before colliding. In order to do this, we need some more information from our printout under the Vehicle Weights Taken at Scene section. We have to determine the total weight of each car. The 4 axles of each car have been weighed on Highway Patrol portable scales. These scales are small enough to fit into the trunk of a patrol car, but are not big enough to weigh the entire car at one time. So we will add the weight of the 4 axles to determine the total weight of each of the cars. What is the total weight of Unit 1? What is the total weight of Unit 2? Write those weights down in the worksheet section of your printout. Next, we will look at approach and departure angles. For this crash, we already know the angles of approach. For the purposes of this calculation, Unit 1 will be at an approach angle of 0, and Unit 2 will be at 90 degrees. Write those angles down in the worksheet approach angle section of your printout. The 2 cars stayed together after the crash, so a single post-collision angle will be measured. Measure the angle the cars traveled after the collision. Record the same angle for both Unit 1 and Unit 2 in the worksheet post-collision angle section of your printout. You should now have the weight, post-collision speed, approach angle, and post-collision angle for both vehicles. We will use the following equation, number 3, on your printout under Equations to calculate the approach speed of Unit 2 to solve for S2. Using the numbers on your worksheet, plug the appropriate variables into this equation to get Unit 2's approach speed. Great! Write your number on the S2 line of your worksheet. Keep in mind that this is the minimum speed Unit 2 could have been going, as we rounded down every chance we had. To calculate the approach speed for Unit 1, we will use equation number 4 on your equations page of the printout. Using the numbers on your worksheet, plug the appropriate variables into this equation to get Unit 1's approach speed. Now write that approach speed on the S1 line of your worksheet. We've looked extensively at what happened to the vehicles in this crash, but the important part is the people. 3 people died, and this impacted untold numbers of family members, classmates, and friends.
To learn more about what happens to someone in a car crash, let's take a look at the forces that were impacting the people in these 2 vehicles. We can't know exactly what happened, but we can calculate approximately what forces would have been acting on the people at a given time. Keep in mind that if the body is moving faster or is bigger, there is more force exerted on it. If the collision is stretched out over time, there is less force exerted. Stopping distance must be estimated based on the circumstances of each collision to be studied. Changing the stopping distance by even a small amount can drastically change the force experienced by each person involved in the crash. The passengers in Unit 1, despite their seatbelts, experience a rapid side acceleration after being hit by Unit 2. That rapid acceleration from 0 to 43 miles per hour occurs over a very short distance, probably around 0.2 feet. This roughly equals a velocity of 63 feet per second. The driver of Unit 1 weighed 205 pounds. Calculate the force on him just after impact using this equation, number 5, force of impact on your printout.
If you got around 63,000 pounds of pressure, you're right, and that's more than enough force to cause death. Using the same equation, try changing the weight to represent other passengers' force of impact. Our other front passenger weighed 200 pounds, and the back seat passenger weighed 110 pounds.
The people in Unit 2 experienced a much different situation from those in Unit 1. The driver and passenger, wearing seatbelts and in seats with impacting airbags, stopped over a much larger distance compared to the 0.2 feet experienced by the passengers in Unit 1. The distance for Unit 2 was probably around 1.5 feet. Calculate the forces experienced by the 180-pound driver.
If your answer was around 7,300 pounds of pressure, you're right. This is a much less severe and life-threatening amount of force to put on this passenger, which is probably why he lived.
So those are some pretty high numbers, but much lower than for Unit number 1. However, it's hard to envision what that kind of force really means. For comparison, the force a 150-pound person would experience falling flat onto a hard surface from various heights is given in this visual. Find each crash victim's force at impact and compare this to the data about heights. Then think about who survived and who didn't. Generally, falls of more than 20 feet are considered potentially fatal falls. We have now completed the calculations to reconstruct what occurred, basing them on physical evidence and physics. Look at the data that both you and other troopers gathered, and draw your conclusions by answering the following questions. Thanks for helping us reconstruct this crash scene.
Yes, you've done a great job. The driver of Unit 2, while only 18 years old, had the responsibility to operate his vehicle in a safe and legal manner. He made a poor choice, and as a result, 3 people are dead and both he and his passenger were injured. In my opinion, there are very few things worth dying for. I wonder if this driver thought getting somewhere faster was worth the price. He's looking at anywhere from 18 months to 5 years in prison and a substantial monetary fine. So, instead of going to college as he planned, he's spending those years in prison. Does this make you stop and think about the driving choices you make?